This is also a minimalist hack because you no longer need to use a silly pizza cutter that
I think cutting pizza with scissors is going to be more tedious than
separate duvets makes so much more sense. It is so much
no.
more
Hey loves, welcome back again to the channel. Today we are going to be checking out 19 weird things Swedish people do that you should try too. I'm so excited yet curious to be doing this one with you guys. But if you're new on the channel, I am Stella. Thank you so much for stopping by. As always, please do not forget to like, subscribe to the channel. Also feel free to use the Buy Me Coffee link below. And I'm also very active on Patreon. So let's get right into today's reaction.
everyone. I hope you are doing amazingly. Today I'm going to share the
I love her
craziest,
eyes.
most
She's
wonderful, and
gorgeous.
best Swedish traditions that I think you should try too. From how we cut our pizza to how we raise our children to how we sleep, here are some of my favorite Swedish traditions that I think everyone
Okay.
in the whole entire world should do. So let's get started. We cut our
Okay, I'm
pizza
curious
with
now.
scissors. This is also a minimalist hack because you no longer need to use a silly pizza cutter that you literally cannot use for anything. Instead, just use your kitchen scissors to cut pizza. Cutting pizza is such an easy and fun way to slice pizza. One of my favorite hacks.
I think cutting pizza with scissors is going to be more tedious than cutting pizza with cutter. The pizza cutter just literally goes like this, like this, like this, and you are done with it. But a scissors, you have to be very precise with the cutting. I don't know how that works, but I just think so.
Hacks for a happy marriage and a Swedish tradition that I grew up with is to have separate duvets. Having separate duvets makes so much more sense. It is so much
No,
more comfortable. You never have to fight with your partner over a blanket, and it just makes a world of difference. If you have one duvet, it's big and bulky and it's crazy. Just try 2 duvets and see if it makes you feel any better. Speaking of duvets and bedding, the next thing that is really important.
how do you cuddle with separate duvets? I don't think I would have a separate duvet. A whole duvet, a whole gigantic duvet at least, but a separate duvet. That ain't romantic to me. I want to be inside your skin all the time.
That you should try that we all do in Sweden is that we have a duvet cover and a duvet inner and a sheet to
Yeah,
make our bed. We
yeah,
don't have
I
any
do that.
top sheets, we don't have any blankets. That is absolutely disgusting. Sorry, but it is because you don't really wash them as often.
Yeah,
You
I
need to
totally
have a
resonate with
duvet
this.
if it's cold in your country, and you need to put the duvet
Duvet,
inside of the duvet
duvet
cover, and
cover,
then you
yeah.
wash the duvet cover weekly, and this way you have a very clean bed. When I first came
Yes,
to New Zealand,
totally.
I
That's
was
what I
taught
use.
about the idea of a top sheet, and you sort of put the duvet on top, but you never really encase it. But that means that when you move around throughout the bed, your body
I'm so sorry. But yeah, this is my duvet. And then I have a cover. Oh, I think from the other side. This is just the duvet. The duvet itself, the cover. The duvet itself is white, and then this ash stuff. It's actually very easy to always wash, and be clean with it. But actually washing the whole duvet, that's really tedious.
will touch the duvet inner, and you simply cannot wash that once a week because it doesn't last as long as if you do that. So
Mm.
absolutely, if you have a duvet inner and it's cold in your country, put a duvet outer on it, and in the summer when it's too warm, you just put the duvet inner away and you just sleep with the duvet outer as a blanket.
Excellent.
One of my favorite Swedish
Easy peasy.
sayings is something like, there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. Very literal and very Swedish, but as a child, this was normally printed on our weekly mailer at kindergarten or at school, which basically meant for our parents to remember to put proper clothing on us because we
Oh,
would be
wow.
outside all day, no matter the weather. I think most people
Yeah.
these days tend to stay inside when it's bad weather outside instead of just going out there, but by putting on proper clothing, it makes it so much easier to be outside in all weathers, and it's so much better for your health to be outside and breathe in the microbiome rather than just staying inside and watching TV. Another Swedish health hack for you guys. One of the things that I didn't think was weird, but that became obvious to me the moment I moved abroad, was the fact that we don't talk about race. The first time I
Mm.
heard the word Caucasian, I was 20 and living in Japan, and before that I had never heard any of these words, and it's just not something we talk about. Which brings me on to the next point, is that you never have to disclose this information if you, for example, go to the bank or going to the university. And that information is absolutely not necessary for the bank to know when I'm opening my bank account, and frankly, it's ridiculous. So do what the Swedish people do, I guess. Whilst we're speaking about politically sensitive
Wow.
subjects, let's speak about children. In Sweden, we treat our children with respect and we treat them as already humans, which is something I really, really enjoy.
Even the scripture said, parents respect your children. Yeah, there's a part of the scripture that said that.
And I
So
think
I totally
everyone should
agree
do.
with this.
Kids don't have to address older people in a certain way. Kids don't really have to act in a certain way. Kids are really allowed to be kids, which means they're allowed to make mistakes. They're allowed to be upset. They don't have to hug someone if they don't want to. They don't have to kiss someone if they don't want to. Just completely reasonable things that I think every country should adopt. Kids are the
Yeah.
best thing in the world. So I absolutely think we should treat kids with the utmost respect.
Yeah.
Now, this one, I don't know if it's
Respect
for
their
all of
choices.
Sweden, but it's definitely something I've experienced a lot of times. But that is people, when I get invited to dinner parties, people ask me, is there something you don't eat? My goodness, this has saved so much trouble having a dinner party or going to a dinner party. I normally tell my best friend when I go to dinners at hers that I don't eat coriander or cilantro because I really, really don't like it. And it makes it a lot easier. One of the most important Swedish traditions is being whole and clean. Now, what does this mean? This is a deeply rooted tradition that goes so far back in Swedish history, but ultimately it means to always present yourself as best as you possibly can. Every time we had friends over, my family would just massively clean the entire house, not because it was necessarily dirty, but it's so important to uphold the standard of being whole and clean in Swedish society.
I actually thought that happens only in my house. Whenever we're having a visitor, you just mandate through stuff for us to clean the entire house as if it's dirty, but not really dirty, but just to keep a good touch, a good scent, and welcoming
Another
vibes
thing
for the
that I think is
visitor.
crazy that other countries have and that we don't have is that we don't really use the expression from scratch. Growing up, I didn't know that you could buy cake mixes. I had only seen it on TV. I had never really heard of it. I didn't know you could buy any sort of pre-made food or something that we call halvfabrikat, which technically means half-processed foods. Of course, this might differ a little bit, but in general, we don't say that we make things from scratch in Sweden. If you make a cake, you will make it from scratch. That is just how you make a cake. There's no other way to make a cake. You either buy it from the bakery or you make it from scratch.
Totally, yeah. I think I'm resonating more with what she's saying because I saw this pancake already made, just to put water and then fry your stuff. It felt so weird to me the first time I saw it, and till date I've never tried that stuff out because I love making my stuff. If I know I'm cooking, I love making my stuff from scratch. I think it's just a traditional thing I have, or the way I was, brought up. So yeah, I totally agree with her.
And I think that's also one of the reasons why we are quite a healthy country. One of the best Swedish culture traditions that you've probably already heard about is Fika. A fika is when you have a coffee, normally, or a tea, with a sweet treat, and you normally have it in the afternoon, but you can actually have it whenever. And this is one of the most common things we do when we go on dates or
I was
meet up
thinking
with our
fika is
friends.
the
It's
cinnamon
so
roll with
cozy,
sugar
it's
on
really
it.
fun, but I also really like that it's one of the few things in Sweden where you can date someone or meet someone without drinking alcohol. Now, fika means different things in different languages, especially in Italian, so I would use it with caution and use it only when you're in Sweden. Going back to childcare, another thing that I really appreciate about Swedish culture that you should try if you have children is co-sleeping. My parents co-slept with me and my brother. Everyone I know, I think, co-slept. My sister co-slept with me or with her parents when she was with them. And I've never ever had any issues, heard any issues, or hear anyone talk badly about co-sleeping. Co-sleeping with your baby makes so much more sense because you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night and go into another room. Also, your baby's brain is not developed enough to know that you're not in the room, which makes it feel unsafe. Co-sleeping is literally the best option for sleeping with your baby. My dad built this really clever little half crib that he put next to the bed with a mattress and made it level to the bed. So I could be in the bed, co-sleeping there at the same time as my mom was in the bed. Co-sleeping shouldn't be a term, I
Wow.
don't think. It shouldn't be a trend. It shouldn't be an idea. It should just be the most common way for sleeping
Part
with
of
your
life.
baby. Another thing that is common in Sweden but isn't very common abroad is that both men and women call themselves feminists. In Sweden, people are generally more educated about feminism than in other countries, and I really like that we use the word more casually and without so much attachment to it that comes from other countries. A
Yeah.
weird thing about Sweden that I thought was a bit quite strange is that our school is a lot easier than any other school in the world. Now, I don't know exactly how accurate this is, but I know that in general in Sweden, we are very educated. However, our school, especially I think middle school and preschool, is a lot easier than, for example, in England or in New Zealand. We have way less assignments, way less homework, but somehow it still works. Unfortunately, this trend is changing and we're becoming a bit more like the rest of the world, but I really think homework is ridiculous and we shouldn't have it. So that's that.
No, we
One weird
should.
thing we do in
Get the
Sweden
child
that I
busy.
think we shouldn't do, so disregard this one, is that we don't really date. Although I'm Swedish, I've never dated a Swedish guy because I think I've only have 2 Swedish guys ever hit on me in my entire life. But in general, we don't really date. We don't really have a period of dating where you can see other people, or normally you're just sort of not together and then you're sort of together. Dating in Sweden is very weird. That is why I've been so unsuccessful at it. And yeah, I find it a bit uncomfortable. And I think Sweden, in fact, should adopt how people date in other countries because I think
Wow.
it makes way more sense and it's a much more adult way of dating. Something we do in Sweden is that we learn English very early. This also makes so much sense because it's easier to learn a language when you're young. And
My reaction to 101 fact about Sweden, I was meant to understand Swedes speak majority of them speak English compared to their dialect, their language, and yeah.
voila, most people speak English, which is such a useful skill to have if you want to live in another country or have any job where you don't work in Sweden. All right, so we're going even more political. Time for religion. One thing we don't do in Sweden is we're not really religious or go to church, even though Wikipedia might say otherwise. So this has changed
Wow.
since then, but when I grew up and my entire generation, we couldn't choose to be enrolled in the Swedish church system. That just happened automatically when we were born, no matter if we were baptized or not. We just went straight into the Swedish church system, which is also the system you have to be in if you want to be buried in a churchyard or if you want to be married in a church, if you want to get baptized in a church, etc., etc. So this is a quite fun fact compared to other countries because if you look at Wikipedia, it says most Swedish people are religious, but that's simply because we are enrolled in church. Now, say what you want about religion, but I, for one, am a person who thinks that we should practice what we preach. And since most people have lots of sex before marriage, drink a ridiculous amount of alcohol, and do all other sorts of gluttonous things, I think it makes complete sense that most people don't go to church. I remember going to church in kindergarten for our summer ending, and I remember my priest had leather pants and played a rock and roll guitar, which we all thought was very, very fun. We are a land of wonderful and quirky, weird, strange traditions. In Sweden, we have something called jantelagen, which practically means be humble, but also never talk well about yourself. So there are pros and cons about this law. It's an unwritten law, but one of the good things about it is that Swedish people are in general very comfortable and quiet, or maybe better is to say not loud people. So it's very nice to be around
They're
Swedish
reserved
people. No one ever yells, no one ever tries to really be the center of attention, no one really, speaks really loudly. One of my favorite things we do in Sweden, which does not work in English, is that we don't really have a word for please. Now you can use snälla, which means like most kindly or can you kindly, or you can use tack, which means thank you, but we don't really have a word for please. I love learning languages because this is those little parts about a language and a culture that you won't really learn unless you know the language. So I love speaking English. I love using the word please. But I also love speaking Swedish and being able to sneak in a tack or a snälla where Swedish people normally don't and sound like the most friendly and polite person in the world. So it's a win-win. So, okay, my friends, I did not think we'd go this political. I have written this video down. It's very funny because when I translate these very regular Swedish ideas to English, they suddenly become so much more political. Swedish people are in generally extremely nice, and it's such a nice culture to live in, and I think that's why so many people move back to Sweden when they want to have a family, because it's such a safe and reasonable and wholesome place for kids to grow up. And part of that is because these lovely and quirky ideas that we have. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I had so much fun speaking about my Swedish traditions, especially since I'm not in Sweden anymore. It makes me so happy to be able to share something of how I grew up with the rest of the world, especially the useful parts. Let me know in the comments below if you have any specific traditions to your home country that you think are really valuable for everyone. And like this video if you like this type of content, and because it really helps the channel. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Hey do!
It's so fun watching her, and most of the things she said, I feel like it should be practiced in the title, yeah. Other countries should adopt to it, and should try doing it too. You made mention of school being much more easier, not giving students a lot of homework and classwork. And currently, Sweden is taking another turn to being more strict and giving homework with to students. I feel that is better because it actually keeps the child preoccupied at home and keep the child glued to his or her book. And yeah, guys, oh, I think I got something wrongly. All this why I actually thought Fika is like a cinnamon roll, like the Swedish cinnamon roll with the hardcore granulated sugar on it. But knowing today Fika is like a lunch break, not like necessarily lunch break, just going to grab some coffee. Wow, I've been saying it wrong this whole while. Please pardon me if you've seen any of my video, I got that totally wrong. And the other point again, she said that you guys make everything from scratch. Yes, in my house we make everything from scratch, especially when it comes to pastry. There are so many products already made products. You just have to like make that makes everything very fast for you at home. But rather, I prefer to start making my pastry from scratch, and it just feels good and it just feels so right for me. And the point where she made mention of them respecting their children, I totally love that. Whenever I give birth, I think I'm going to go with this rule, respecting my kid decision. She don't want to, he or she do not want to hug someone. That's fine. I don't need to force you to do things you don't want to do. I'm going to totally respect their decision and their boundaries as well. And the part she says, Swedish do not talk more about race. Growing up, if not for the social media, you guys, we actually do not talk much about race in my own country as well. I grew up to understand, okay, there's something called Caucasian, um, um, mixed race, and all of those stuff. So when I was growing up, I didn't hear any of those words. This was from the media. I got to understand, okay, things like this actually exist, and that was very insightful and informative for me. Let me know what you think about this video in the comment section. The points you totally agree with what she said, let me know that in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video with me to this time, and I'll see you guys on my next one. Bye love, stay safe.